Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We will wait a few more seconds to get folks lined up before we queue up our presentation and get the program going. Appreciate everybody joining us this morning.
Hello. Here we go.
Morning, Chris.
Morning.
Morning, Russ.
Morning, Peter. How are you?
Very good. For folks who don't know, Russ Burke is one of our chairs of our Location Intelligence Committee, and makes the wheels turn with the ReadyMass program.
Thank you for those kind words.
All right. Well, we're getting there. Why don't we, Tegan? Why don't we share the screen, and we can go over agenda. Great. Well, welcome everybody. I know we'll have folks in and out of the meeting as sort of is the custom with this virtual showcase, but we appreciate you all being here this morning. Let me jump to the next slide. We are very grateful that the ReadyMass 100 program is supported by Court of Point at Patriot Place and Biomed Realty. We appreciate that support a great deal. ReadyMass 100 is a very robust platform for us at MassEcon. It's the primary means for us to market Massachusetts spaces externally. It's our calling card, so to speak, when we engage with corporate site selectors. And so having a strong ReadyMass program in place and platform is a great advantage to us. We're seeing more and more use of the platform by external actors, especially. So it's a great way to pull people in and take a good look at Massachusetts. And so thank you, Court of Point and Biomed Realty for their support. And we'll be hearing from our friends at Court of Point at Patriot Place after we get a little bit more exposure to our three new incoming properties here with the ReadyMass program. So quickly on to the next slide and a review of the agenda. So we are in the welcome section, and a little bit different from this agenda. I'm going to introduce Aaron Jodka from Colliers, just to give us his insights on what the market looks like at this point, sort of a quick shot to maybe confirm what we're all seeing or we think we're seeing. And then I'm going to spend a little time on where we are at MassEcon with our site location projects. It's been a very busy year already, as you will see. And then after that, we'll go on to the new additions to the ReadyMass program. We're very happy to have representatives of each of the three properties available to talk about the properties so that all have a better understanding of the opportunities there. And then we'll learn a little bit more about Court of Point from its representatives after that. So we appreciate everybody being with us this morning. And with that, Aaron, I'm just going to turn it over to you. What the heck's going on in the commercial market space these days?
I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, one thing I'll just want to start off with, that we're fortunate to be in Massachusetts, covering a number of different cities and talking to my colleagues across the country. We're in a pretty fortunate position in having growth drivers and having industry that's thriving in Massachusetts, where Other areas are still struggling and may struggle for some time. Now, it's not all perfect, and we'll kind of touch on some of the differences amongst the different property types, but so some big stats that I think are important. Over 60% of our population is fully vaccinated. That's among the highest of any state in the union. That's important because it allows us to have potentially more economic freedom than some other states. $17.6 billion is the year-to-date venture capital that has come to Massachusetts in pre-IPO money. All of last year, we saw 10.3 billion. So we're already above last year's pace by a wide margin. At this pace, we're going to more than double it. Those are tremendous numbers. These are numbers we've never seen before. A lot of that's going to the biotech and life sciences industries, which is something we'll touch on in a few minutes. But at the end of the day, there's tremendous amounts of capital coming to Massachusetts, which is supporting our industry and it's supporting our economy. And that's a hallmark of our overall marketplace. We're a very eds and meds focused economy. Historically, that's been very, very stable. In a pandemic, when you don't have your students on campus, that hurts. Well, that's going to change in the fall. We'll have our kids back. So that's really going to start to increase the vibrancy of places like Worcester, places like Boston, Springfield, et cetera, where all those college kids are going to be back very, very active. So let's touch on the different property types, and then I'll kick it back over to Pete for the rest of the agenda. Office, that's sort of the weakest of all, but there's signs of optimism that are approaching. If you walk around downtown Boston, there's more people than there were 6 weeks ago, than there were 6 weeks before that. Again, that higher vaccination rate is important. Now, right now, Labor Day is the big turning point in terms of what most people are expecting, with more people coming back to the office. Not every company, but more and more companies are expecting their folks back in, at least in a higher share come Labor Day. So as September rolls around, we're going to get to see what maybe Boston will start to feel like more consistently going forward. So that'll be very, very important. Today, physical occupancies are still very low. Some companies are back. Most still are allowing for flexible workforce during the summer. Downtown Boston, we saw a stabilization in fundamentals in Q2. Absorption was slightly negative, but we started to see a real stabilization in the world of sublease space. Get an echo from someone. There we go. So that sublease space has been a real challenge. We've never seen more sublease space on the market up until Q2, where it came down just a little bit. And that's been the biggest driver of vacancy increases. Rents have held despite the softening in fundamentals. Historically, when we see a vacancy increase like we've seen, rents have fallen. They haven't. Asking rents have held, concessions have come up, but overall, that market's starting to show some real signs of optimism. Some bigger leases have been done recently. So again, tenants are back and active, and that's a really good story. Cambridge continues to be Cambridge with tight vacancies and rising rents. So that's pretty much more of the same in Cambridge. And then out in the suburbs, we've seen a little bit of negative net absorption in the second quarter, largely because of some big moves. IBM in particular, moving from Littleton to Lowell and downsizing their space, caused some sizable negative net absorption as a result. But overall, we're seeing signs of people getting back, traffic, etc. The office market will start to stabilize and expected to recover later this year into the beginning of 2022. Industrial is rocking and rolling. We've never seen lower vacancy rates. Tenant demand is through the roof. We're tracking more than 13.5 million square feet of active tenants. We have numerous million square foot requirements on the market. That's not something that happens in Massachusetts. We have very few million square foot users. Today, we have multiple users looking for 1 million square feet. So that's a really good story for our marketplace. We continue to see rents increase. They're north of $10 a square foot, and property prices have never been higher. And we continue to see this market moving further out. Now, we have a definition of Greater Boston that pretty much ends before we get to Worcester. The market's pushing out beyond that. So as you go down Route 2, Lancaster, Westminster, out past Worcester, Charlton, for example, with the massive Amazon facility that's coming, those are all areas that are continuing to see growth, and tenants are trying to find sort of that next spot to grow and find opportunities. We're seeing outdated office product being purchased to be demolished to then become an industrial site. So historically, the higher and best use of land from an economic value has not been industrial. Industrial is usually the one that gets scraped. Well, in this case, we're seeing certain locations where industrial is actually a higher and better use than some of the suburban office products. So new dynamic there in the world of industrial. And then lab. And this market is even more on fire than the industrial market. Record low vacancy rates, 3.4% at the second quarter. Demand across the board for all asset types. Biomanufacturing in the GMP manufacturing space is absolutely soaring, and that's creating a new industry driver across the marketplace, as well as the typical R&D lab type of demand. Both of those are at levels we've never seen before. That VC funding that I mentioned, about $8.5 billion of that year to date has gone to life science and biotech firms. These groups don't sit on piles of cash and put it in the bank. They take that money to scale and to grow. The problem today is they don't have enough space to grow. So we're seeing more and more product being converted and ground up development, but some of that ground up development is still a couple of years out. So we're going to be in a substantial supply demand imbalance for the near term, where there's far more demand than there is available space for these tenants. So that's causing some challenges. But long term, we see this as a really strong driver where that industry could double, triple over the next 10, 20 years and really continue to drive our economy. These are well-paying jobs, and that those clusters are spreading. It's not just Cambridge, it's out in the suburbs, it's in Boston, and it's emerging in a number of different suburban communities. So a lot of these towns and municipalities are trying to figure out, how do we kind of get prepared for this? So they're trying to change the zoning. They're trying to understand what life science and what lab is and isn't. And that's a learning curve for some communities. But at the end of the day, this is a driver that will be very commonplace across Boston and greater Boston, Massachusetts for years to come.
I appreciate the point on understanding what the requirements of life science space and lab space is. Aaron, as I noted, I was just at a Boston City Council committee providing testimony on, and that's Boston. So there's a great deal of under information about lab space and what goes on there. So it is a constant. That's a constant challenge, and especially as you noted, it gets to different communities that don't have the background necessarily. But there are a lot of great examples out there that they can look for. And I'll just point out there's a publication. It's a bit dated now, but it's still very appropriate for communities, and you can find it with a Google search, Community Guide for Biotechnology, and it was published by MassBio back in 2010. It's still a very good, appropriate piece. They're updating it now, but in a pinch, if you're working with a community that doesn't have that experience with the industry, that's still a good publication to reference. But Aaron, thanks so much. That's a great insight. Yeah, we hadn't planned to do Q&A here, and if anybody has a question or two for Aaron, feel free to raise your hand.
Yeah, and if you just want to send it in chat, I'm happy to answer it there as well.
Great. Appreciate that. All right. Well, let's move back to the presentation. So here at this point, we just wanted to share with the group what we're looking at in terms of MassEcon, in terms of our site location project. So 2019 was a very busy year for MassEcon with site location projects. We had 55. At 2020, pandemic year, we only had one less. So it was very busy despite the pandemic in 2020. At this point, obviously not quite in August yet, we're at 45 in 2021. So, this is, everything, Aaron, you just noted in terms of activity, we are absolutely seeing in terms of site location projects, the volume very high this year. So it's very busy time. I think what we're also seeing is, while there are wins that are happening, there are conclusions to all these projects that are favorable. We're seeing, I think, a slower decision timeline. I think that's in part because of the pandemic. We have, until fairly recently, we've had projects progressing only in the virtual space. So, no site visits, travel restrictions, all that sort of thing during the pandemic. As recently as early June, when things have started to free up since then, happily. But that has impinged, I think, how fast these projects move. But the sheer volume of projects is very high. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of what where they're from. I mean, that international number is about what is a pretty that's about in keeping with past percentages in terms of the number of international projects that we're working at. What's a little bit different here is the number of out-of-state projects, looking at Massachusetts versus in-state. That's usually flipped the other way. We usually have more in-state projects than out-of-state projects, but so that's a little bit different activity. And in terms of projects by industry, sort of generally speaking, one thing of note here, so we have manufacturing on top, and that manufacturing isn't always on top, hasn't always been on top in terms of the trends over time, but it is thus far this year in 2021. Life sciences right behind that, and it should be noted, of those life science projects that we're working on, a lot of the life science projects are very organic. They're lab projects. They're moving from 10,000 to 25,000 square feet, or 25 to 30. That sort of, they're sort of increasing their footprint in particular communities, and they don't come our way at MassEcon. But among the life science projects that have come our way, I would say probably 9 or 10 of these are biomanufacturing related. So, not only do we have general manufacturing, on top there, among the life science projects we're working on, a lot are biomanufacturing. And then technology, logistics, as office being a little bit back. I see Rob Anderson with his hand raised. Rob, happy to take the question.
Yeah, I was just wondering on those out of state, are they coming from further afield, or those from like our neighbors in Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire?
They're all over the place. I'll let Doug weigh in, Doug Kellum weigh in on that. But we're seeing them from typically corporate site selectors, and we don't know exactly where they're from. So I would say most are not from adjacent states. Does that sound right, Doug?
Yeah, that's correct. And a lot of those, as you mentioned, are site selectors located in other cities and states. And when we ask them where the company is from, as you know, we typically don't get a whole lot of information early on, but they will indicate to us whether the company is based outside of Massachusetts or not. So that's what we're using as sort of our data source when communicating with those consultants, and primarily that's our point of contact. It's really not the companies directly on those out-of-state projects. It's more often the site selectors.
And not among these projects, there have been a small handful of opportunities from site selectors that I think were somewhat exploratory missions, fact gathering, information gathering, probably in support of a future project rather than a current one. But that would be a small number. The site selectors are very busy these days, so so these are some trends what we're seeing, and we'll share more by year's end, certainly with our membership and with this group when we next convene. So just wanted to share those insights. And with that, let's move on to our next segment, which is where we get introduced to 3 terrific new properties to the ReadyMass inventory. Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our speakers on behalf of each project.
Sure. And so we have Doug Goldwaite with Caruth Capital. Is going to be talking about 3 and 5 Speen Street in Framingham. And is Doug on here?
Yes. How you doing, guys?
How you doing?
So I'm with Caruth Capital. I'm sitting next to owner Chris Egan, and been with him about 5 years. I'm a senior property manager, and I manage these 2 buildings here, 3 and 5 Speen Street. This past June, they were, 5 Speen was fully occupied by IDC, IDG, and the top 2 floors of 3 Speen were occupied by IDC, IDG. And June 30th this year, they pulled out of both buildings and relocated to Needham. So right now, 5 Speen Street is completely vacant, and the top 2 floors of 3 Speen Street are vacant.
And you can all view.
We can, 3 Speen can also be completely, we have a couple tenants in there now with relocation rights that we can vacate the building if needed. So total, the 2 lots combined are about 15 acres. And we have approval to even put a building in between these, a 3rd building in between these 2 buildings and connect them. 5 Speen Street has a full service cafeteria. They're right off of exit 117 on the Mass Pike. There's 2 easy access points on each side through Speen Street and Leggett McCall. There's 4.5 per 1,000 parking currently. And we have a lot of information on how we can redevelop the property if we did have interest.
May I ask, it's been a long time since I worked with Chris Egan. Hello, Chris. Would you be considering conversion to life science with any of these properties? We're doing 5 million square feet of core and shell at the various clusters, but nothing in Framingham currently. You've got a great location, highway-wise and everything else. Any thoughts in that direction?
That's a good question, Steve. Yes, we've explored that with a number of engineers, even the fact that we can even scrape the site. And we have FAR for 220,000 square feet of space there.
Yeah.
And we're exploring that, and we're open to that. We love all our buildings, but we know times change, and we have to reinvest in them.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the big things is you can get the parking ratio down on lab type buildings versus office buildings as well, and maybe get a better FAR versus parking requirement.
Yes, and the zoning in Framingham is excellent, and they have a very aggressive city council now that understands that they have to be nimble, and we have very good relationships with them.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else, Doug?
I think that's it, unless anyone has questions.
Looks like we're moving on.
Yep. So the next property is in Westboro, 5 Technology Drive, and this is a site right next to the new Olympus building.
Yeah, why don't I take this? Mark Verow is unable to attend the meeting, and so he's asked me to fill in for him. As we said earlier, my name is Chris Egan, president of Caruth Capital. We've been in business for over 30 years. We have over 3 million square feet of office and industrial space, and we look forward to working with MassEcon. And I'd like to thank Tegan and Russ for helping us get on the platform today. 5 Technology Drive is a piece of land. It's about over 14 acres. As you can see, it's strategically located at the intersection of Route 9 and 495. Mass Turnpike is just 1 exit down to the south. It's about 14.1 acres. It's fully permitted for 103,000 square foot, 3-story office building. You're looking at the site plan right now. It's got close to 400 parking spaces. It has a MEPA permit. We have it. The number is 5299. We have a Westboro building permit for this building, permit number 52, 2001. We have a Mass DEP file number. We have the Westboro order of conditions as of May 11th of this year. So this is ready to go if someone needs a 3-story, 103,000 square foot building. Now you might say, geez, 14 acres with only a 100,000 square foot building on it. A lot of the site has some wetlands in it, and this is the maximum we can do on the site. It's bio-ready. Bio-ready Community Platinum is the Westboro. It's on municipal water and sewer. It has natural gas from Eversource, and of course, power, electricity from National Grid. I mentioned earlier, it's abutting 495. Westboro is unique in the area with a single tax rate, $18.54 per thousand. Yeah, that makes it very competitive for commercial companies like Amersham and General Electric and Cytiva to come out and do business in Westboro. It's a 43D expedited permitting designation, and it's shovel ready. We just welcomed Olympus's North American headquarters to Westboro. Caruth Capital, in partnership with the Gutierrez Company, put a 150,000 square foot 4-story building just seconds away from this site. So it really has international attention. With that, Russ, I'll turn it back to the group. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, any questions on this site? It's a great, I mean, that's, I mean, you know, that is a textbook ReadyMass site. I mean, with the approvals, as you stated, the bio-ready status, and you know, it's great access. So it's an exciting opportunity.
So Chris, could you further define bio-ready? I mean, right now, speculative office doesn't seem like a strong play in the market. Does bio-ready mean lab space? I assume it would not be suitable for biomanufacturing.
I think with the footprint, it probably wouldn't be because it's a 3-story building, but the community, Westboro as a community, is a bio-ready community platinum.
And so, you know, the requirements there really are that, you know, you have town water and sewer, you have great points of contact in terms of this expedited expedited site. The zoning, of course, is all in place, and so this, so it's for, you know, Westboro to get there. It's an application process to Mass Bio. So platinum level really is a green traffic light. It's go for that type of use. You know, by manufacturing that it's on town water and sewer, you know, there's I would think be a possibility for that if the zoning allows manufacturing as a use.
It does. Manufacturing is allowed by right. And I'd be negligent if I didn't mention that Partners is looking to put in a 665,000 square foot medical facility within minutes from this site. You might have read it in the papers recently.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if it's the right building profile for CGMP, building heights and all that kind of stuff, but certainly for lab, it's outstanding. And the broker list we recently got for Cambridge and the suburbs of 128 and 495 had 50 to 60 requirements, every one of them lab, not one office, not one, you know, just that kind of thing. So I think it's a very good play, and you should get some good traction on that.
Thank you.
Agreed. All right, Doug, next site.
Yeah, next site is Exchange 93. It's the address is 400 Wood Road in Braintree. This property is represented by Pete Wariski with Cushman and Wakefield. This is a really nice building. Construction is nearly complete. I was actually out to tour it, and really suitable for biomanufacturing. There are basically two parts to the building. There's a high portion for the actual manufacturing operation, and then the low portion, which is really suitable for office lab. So I'll let Pete talk more about this one.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Doug, and thanks to the team for having us on. Yeah, like you said, and Aaron touched on it earlier, with a lot of the supply and demand issues, as well as conversions, and we're really targeting, biomanufacturing, as Doug mentioned, and Doug was kind enough to come down and take a tour of the site. So this was the former Hemanetics headquarters building that they had, owned and occupied, for probably more than 30 plus years. And they were doing blood manufacturing and plasma work here. Hilco bought the building about a year and a half or so ago. And then since that time, has gone through basically taking the building down to the steel. You can kind of flip through some of these next renderings as I can talk through them. But it's a 150,000 square foot building. What you see on these renderings here will be completed in September. So we are ready to go, today for tenant fit up. And I think we position ourselves uniquely in the market, as there are not, you could probably count on one hand, if that at all, how many of these buildings are ready for, tenant fit up that are looking for biomanufacturing. Just if you go back to the spec page real quickly. So it's 152,000 square feet. The building actually was 180,000 square feet when Hilco bought the building. We ripped out 30,000 square feet of mezz to really open up the footprint and expand the 36-foot clear that you see that has 72,000 square feet. So really it's almost two buildings. You have a section of 80,000 feet that's 18-foot clear, and then you have the 36-foot clear section that's 72,000 square feet. We've talked to a few tenants recently. We'll probably end up putting back some of that mezz, but the mezz that was in there wasn't really functional for, the types of use that we were, focusing on. And another important point, I know people have touched on utilities. So it's on municipal, water and sewer. These are new gas, new water lines, new sanitary main. We have actually increased the power to 7,200 amps just as of recently. So from an infrastructure standpoint, everything is going to be ready to go, for that user that wants to come into the space. And again, I think it's one of those things where we're, super focused on, the biomanufacturing requirements that are out in the market. And again, I think to Pete's point, and when he was talking about some of the different users coming out of state, we've actually had a few companies from, out of the US approach us as recently as last week. So it's not just, throughout the US, there's a global focus on companies looking to get into Boston. In particular, if you flip to the location slide, another reason why we love, where this building is situated is because, as you see, the red line and the connectivity into Harvard, into Kendall, and into the Cambridge market, we're going to provide a shuttle, if a tenant needs it, to, really the station of whichever they choose. Quincy Center is about 10 minutes from when you leave Wood Road. That picks up both the commuter rail and red line. Quincy Adams and Braintree is a little bit closer, but that is strictly just, on the red line. Actually, the Braintree picks up the commuter rail. So, from a public transportation aspect, we think it's in an excellent location. Obviously, accessibility, driving, whether you're coming from 93, Route 3, the 24 corridor, 495, you're not more than 25 minutes really from any major interchange. So from a recruitment standpoint, and again, we think we position really well, in that regard as well. But our biggest selling point right now is timing, because we feel like we're ahead of some of these other projects that are in the pipeline. And again, we're ready for tenant fit up, today.
You got great column spacing and clear height there, which we don't always find when we're repositioning buildings for CGMP. That's going to be a big plus in addition to the location.
Yep. Yeah, we agree.
Anyone with questions on Exchange 93? I just want to know that, in terms of that pipeline reference, all the life science projects, every one is precious. All of these different projects are important for us at MassEcon, and we treat them all like the gems they could be. And when we work on a project, we do work as a team with what we call Team Massachusetts. Important for all of you associated with these sites and others is, when you do get those inquiries from out of state, keep us in mind. We might not be working with them, we might be working with them, but please consider MassEcon a resource to help you support any need you may have with regard to labor market information, demographic information, all of that kind of data that can help support a project. Workforce is so important, and you really have to make the case that the workforce is here regardless of the type of requirement. And we've seen that everything from warehouse and distribution right up to the life sciences and high tech, making the case that the workers are there. So consider us a resource for that, and also consider us a resource, as a project may progress, there will undoubtedly be a point which they want to start to talk with the state, perhaps about incentives. And that's where we can fill an important role, especially in that initial discussion where we are not part of state government. We can treat all projects confidentially. We can sign a non-disclosure agreement where our partners in state government can't. Often we're brought in to projects, more and more lately, we're brought into projects because we have that capacity and they don't. And so consider us that resource when the discussion may turn to incentives, and we can provide some insight there and gradually pull in resources from the state as needed once to get that project, as that project gets to different milestones and consideration of a specific location. So keep MassEcon in mind. Our resources are available to you when needed. So I want to thank all of these three projects, all these three sites. They're outstanding. They're great additions to our ReadyMass 100. We will be sharing with our corporate site selector database the availability of these new sites. And the one thing to note, there is a perception sometimes among corporate site selectors, whether they're based in, Texas or Chicago or wherever, that, Massachusetts is somehow built out. There's no room for additional growth. It's difficult to get projects done. Well, as we heard from all of three of these projects, you can align, you can do the hard work in advance through the MIPA process and so forth to really get these sites to the front of the line and ready. And that's what ReadyMass is all about. These are ready sites. They're ready to go. And so we'll be promoting them as such. And so now I want to introduce Ted Fire and Nat Kessler from Court Appointed Patriot Place. Before I bring them in to share their slides about this incredible site, we want to share this with this group as often as we can because it's an outstanding site and because Court Appointed is a great supporter for the ReadyMass program. We have a video to share, so I'll let Tegan tee that up. And so there's a video to share about the site, and then we'll let Nat and Ted talk a little bit more about the site specifically. So we'll let Tegan get that video. She's in control, NASA control right now, getting this all lined up for us. and stay tuned.
Tired of fighting the daily traffic into Boston and Cambridge? Looking for a place with all the amenities of the city, but with
Can't
easy
see it,
access
Tegan.
to employees, whether to the on-site commuter.
Can't see it.
Take two.
I'll try to reshare this. See that? You guys see that?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tegan.
Tired of fighting the daily traffic into Boston and Cambridge? Looking for a place with all the amenities of the city, but with easy access for you and your employees, whether to the on-site commuter rail station or by reverse commute highway driving? Welcome to Quarter Point at Patriot Place. Over 1.5 million square feet of permitted, shovel-ready development located in Foxborough, Massachusetts, 25 miles from Boston and Providence. Imagine having your everyday needs at your front door. Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, CVS, Trader Joe's, and more. World-class healthcare on site, with Mass General Brigham providing everything from primary care to cutting-edge specialties. You can see your caregiver with ease at Quarter Point. And when you need a break from the day's challenges, venture out to the beautiful Nature Trail and Cranberry Bog and become reinvigorated. Whether you're entertaining clients or connecting with colleagues and friends at one of 19 restaurants, Quarter Point at Patriot Place offers an incredible variety of dining and entertainment options for you. With two of the country's top hotel brands at your doorstep, ready to accommodate all your business needs. With best-in-class sustainability initiatives already in place, including a 500,000 gallon water reuse system and 2 megawatts of solar arrays, Quarter Point delivers cutting-edge, environmentally responsible buildings designed for today's new workspace. Quarter Point at Patriot Place, the best of the city, close to home.
Terrific. So as Tegan gets up the slides for Nat and Ted, yeah, impressive stuff. My question is, no, you don't show 6 championship banners anywhere in that. I wonder whether that's just.
We save that for the site visits, Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's all yours, Nat.
Sure. Thanks, Pete. And appreciate the MassEcon team allowing us this opportunity to present as a sponsor, and really appreciate great insight from the 3 sites that were added to the ReadyMass list. They're all fantastic projects that we're happy to support as well. So as the video showed, we are part of the Patriot Place development, and we call it Quarter Point. And it is the largest shovel-ready site in Massachusetts. And as Aaron pointed out, with the $18 billion coming to Massachusetts, we are fielding inquiries from all over the globe about, well, where can we do something in Massachusetts? And we're working hard with the MassEcon team to show the world that, yeah, there's still plenty of places to develop in Massachusetts, and come talk to us no matter what your size is. And for us, Quarter Point at Patriot Place is out in the suburbs, equidistant from Boston, Providence. We're close. We've got 1.5 million square feet of capability right next to what is already a very vibrant operational, campus, if you will. So clearly everybody knows Gillette Stadium and everything that comes around Patriot Place development. And Tegan, if you want to flip to the next slide, it'd be great. That's the sort of, our triangulation between Worcester, Providence, and Boston, Cambridge. We're very close to everything. We've got a dedicated MBTA train station on site that is going to be very important for all these site selectors to say, well, how am I going to get my people to this place? It's already there. The campus supports itself already with, Tegan, hit the next slide, if you will, please. So the blue the blue buildings are what we're targeting as Quarter Point within Patriot Place. Patriot Place on its own already has all of these amenities that the video showed. You've got 19 different restaurants, you've got hospitality, you've got all the retail, it's already right there. The craft organization is one of the largest employers in the region already, and there's thousands of people that work there. And so there's a labor base that is already around this campus. Next slide, please. That's again, sort of one of the listing all of the amenities that are in place. So lots of developers all over the state and country develop their project first and then try to build the amenities second. We're kind of doing it in reverse. We've got all the amenities already. And so what we have to build are additional buildings in addition to what's already been built, another 1.5 million square feet. And we'll talk you through in a minute, what that really means and what we've got for you. Next slide. Again, it's just another shot so everybody gets a vantage point. The highlighted area on the right side of the screen are the 7 buildings that have been master planned by SGA to fit into this corner of the campus. All of the other buildings on the page are already all there, with the hotel right across the street. And in addition to that, the crafts own all kinds of space across Route 1 for additional uses as well. We'll hit to the next slide, Tegan, please. Oops. Nope, that's not it. We must have missed a couple of slides. So we had a different slide that was going to show you one of the specific buildings. And what we've got here is our team has developed a number of different, obviously 7 buildings, each of which are ranging from 200,000 feet up to more. We can do high-rise buildings and low-rise buildings. Building A that we've master planned so far is taking advantage of some of the conversation we've all been having about the life science world. It's not just office. We are ready and prepared to build life science within our first and second buildings. We've had inquiries from folks that are saying, oh, well, what if we want to come in for 100,000 feet, but we have scale to 500,000 feet? Absolutely. That's where we can shine. We can say, okay, fine. We want to come in and start with 100,000 feet. We can definitely build you that and get you to 500 or 100, 1.5 million square feet of space. One of the first buildings that we started to design has that mixed use office lab ready, as well as GMP. So we're taking it all into consideration with the high bay, the column spacing, the power, infrastructure is all in our master plan building. And Ted will talk to you a little bit about the timeline of which we can deliver this. But again, I want to just emphasize that we've got it all ready to go, and the craft organization certainly has the wherewithal to deliver it for some of these site selectors who are working with their clients. Ted, you want to take it from there?
Sure. Thanks, Nat. And thanks, Pete, for giving us a few minutes to highlight Quarter Point. We at Quarter Point are proud to sponsor MassEcon and the ReadyMass 100 initiative. So thank you for the time. And many thanks to SGA, Al Spagnolo and his team. I see Steve on the call today. To Nat's point, they've master planned Quarter Point for us and are designing the buildings for it. Timing wise, we have a MEPA certificate in hand for the 1.5 million square feet. So all we need to do is get a very straightforward site plan approval through the town of Foxborough. We've done it dozens of times, excuse me, successfully here. So we could get a building under construction in 2 to 3 months from when the design is put forward. And then a shell could be ready in 12 months. And depending on the use and the user, we project an occupancy 6 months after that. All the infrastructure is in place on the campus to support this development. So again, we're ready to plug and play on that front. We have an in-house development team that has overseen the construction and the development of Gillette Stadium and Patriot Place. So we can format a deal structure in any and all ways. We can do a ground lease where the tenant wants to control construction, or we can do a complete turnkey, which we've done for the Mass General Brigham, one of their 2 buildings on the property, 150,000 square feet that we took from soup to nuts for them. On the second building here, we delivered the shell and they handled the fit out. So we can do any and all. I think that's about it. I mean, we're proud of Patriot Place and Gillette Stadium. We're excited about this next frontier of Quarter Point, and we're ready to work with you all to make it happen.
And may I just add, thank you for the shout out, Ted. We love this opportunity to work with both you and Nat. And with over 100 architects and interior designers, we are ready to be design ready to expedite shovel ready with you. So thank you very much.
Steve. No, we love working with you guys. Thank you.
Well, thanks, thanks,
Just
Nat.
to add,
Thanks,
yeah,
Nat.
Peter, just say we have a whole package. Obviously, we wanted to skinny this down for this presentation, but for any of the folks on the in the audience who want a complete package of what we have to offer, direct message us, and happy to shoot it over to you.
Yeah, any questions from those in the audience?
Yeah, this is Doug. So Ted, just curious, I know we've put the property across the street in the mix for a couple biomanufacturers. Can you talk a little bit about your vision for that property? Is that specifically for biomanufacturing, or where would you like to go with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way we're thinking about it, Doug. You know, we work closely with Nat and his team to look for the right synergy between, you know, the more dense development of Quarter Point as you see it here. But we do have, you know, over 300 acres across the street that does fall within our overall site permit envelope. So for the right fit, you know, we absolutely are open to the biomanufacturing idea. You know, we're interested in job growth and density, obviously, but if there's a hand in glove with some of the R&D in the lab that meshes with the biomanufacturing, we're all for it, and we do have that capability, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to add too, and just in terms, I mean, all 4 of these sites that we've talked about today, we've heard about each as being a life science opportunity in some way. And that might be, well, you have 4 sites, they're in competition with one another. I think the pool of opportunity is so great out there right now in the life sciences that, you know, really our struggle is not competition within Massachusetts at all. It is, if we struggle with any of these, sometimes we have opportunities coming to us, and they come to us with pre-vetted sites, and sometimes we look at the sites and say, how did they wind up with that site when we have all these other terrific ones? And so sometimes our conversation is, you know, have you looked at these other sites? And it's often because they're working with brokers that are not in this market, and yeah, that's not a majority of projects, but it is some that sometimes come to us with here's the site we're interested in, and it's a red flag to us because, you know, it might not have water, might not have sufficient water, might not have sewer, but for whatever reason they've landed there. And so we're sometimes involved in trying to shove them or gradually nudge them in a different direction. But we have a lot of great opportunities here as discussed around the life sciences. And so I just want to note that you know, the pool is big, and these are all viable sites for life sciences. And frankly, just given what we have in Q now, I mean, you know, these are all excellent locations. And so we'll be continuing to market these with the life sciences in mind, and other industries certainly. But these are great additions to the inventory, each and every one of these. So Quarter Point having been part of the inventory already. So thank you all. Any last questions for any of the presenters? I just have a couple more slides. Hearing none. Upcoming events next week, I guess 4th, we're at Polar Park in Worcester. This is our first in-person event since our last in-person event, which was a Southeast Spotlight on February 27th of 2020 at Gillette Stadium at Patriot Place. So we're glad to have another in-person event. We're focusing on the Central region, where there's a lot of activity obviously going on. We're talking about the competitive advantages to locating in Central Massachusetts. You're all welcome to attend. Information on our website in terms of registration. We'd love to have you attend that. And right after that event, we have our next slide, Tegan, is our summer reception. And so we would, anybody interested, we'd love to have you attend our summer reception. You know, for our membership, we haven't come together in some time in person. And so we'd welcome you to this event. We're going to announce our featured speaker probably by the end of the day. I'm sure you'll all be interested in who we have coming, so stay tuned for that. But we'd love to have you for either or both events out in Worcester as we sort of get back to in-person meetings, and we're happy to do so. With that, we are at our time. I want to thank all of our 3 new properties, 3 and 5 Speen Street, 5 Tech Drive, Exchange 93. Thank you so much for the presentations, Doug, Mark, Pete, Chris, and to Court Point, as always, thank you so much, Ted and Nat, for showcasing that fantastic site as well. Keep us in mind going forward at MassEcon. Any questions you have on any of these properties, let us know. We'll get you to all the folks that spoke today. Stay tuned for our events. We look forward, hopefully we'll see some of you out in Worcester at Polar Park. It'll be my first time there. Some members of our team have been there already. It's supposed to be a great site. Can't wait to be there. A lot of development happening right around in the neighborhood. So thank you all. Thanks again to Russ, our chair of our Location Intelligence Committee. We will see you all soon, hopefully in person in the near future. Thanks everybody.
Thanks all.
Great job. Thank you.
Take care.